welcome to episode 20. Here we are.
We are here, episode 20, and we just have a few announcements before we get into the coin flippage to our stories. First, Hannah, are you excited that we are no longer sitting on the floor after this episode?
I'm so excited. This is the last time we're sitting on the floor.
Episode 20 is the last on the floor. Episode 21 is going to start a new chapter within the Bleeding Grave podcast.
We will be comfortable on a couch, and that'll put us one step closer to being able to bring video to you. Where is the cat?
Right behind you. I just saw it in your face as you were talking. You heard her.
And now you just sit there looking all cute. Like, who? Me? I didn't do anything.
She's the queen of the castle. I threatened to take her back to the shelter, but she just doesn't have it.
She doesn't believe you.
No.
She's calling your bluff.
Oh, she calls it every day, and she is 100% right to do so. All right, and the other...
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the other thing? Because I don't know.
The other surprise that I told Hannah about...
It's been killing me. I have my theories.
It's been about a week now.
I have my theories, but...
And I've been letting her just simmer in this mystery. So, without further ado, Hannah, close your eyes, please.
No, you want me to close my eyes?
Close your eyes.
Awful. Awful. I hate this.
Yeah, keep your eyes closed. Because it's a surprise. It's a surprise.
My hands are sweaty.
Oh, good thing I don't have to hand this to you.
Okay, good.
3, 2, 1, open.
That's what I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It is. Oh, you framed both of them.
I framed both of them, yep.
Oh, it's our prints from our article of or in Voyage, Minnesota.
Yeah.
I was wondering when these were gonna come. I was like just thinking about it a couple weeks ago. I was like, oh my gosh, they look so nice.
Don't they?
Oh,
Thank
you.
Yeah, it took me a while to find the frames that I thought would like fit best.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they're just in these like nice like black wooden frames, and they're just it looks so sleek. Oh my gosh, it's got the full article, it's got the pictures. I love it.
Yep, they gave me a couple options to choose from, and I thought this was the best, and I think I sent it to you to make sure it was okay too. And yeah.
Love it. Oh my gosh.
Took a while to get sent to us, but I was so excited when we got them, and once we got them, got to find the frame, and it's nice too because these frames are also a tabletop frame too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, these are so stinking cute. I can't wait to put it up in the apartment.
Yeah. So this one will be in the studio forever, and then the other one will always travel with Hannah.
Well, hopefully, ideally, someday I will also have a studio at my house so we can pick and choose, and it will absolutely be living there. But until then, I'm just going to casually put it on display where everybody who comes over can see it.
I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So those are all the surprises, and we got a lot of things coming. Mm-hmm. And I am excited to see what the rest of the year brings. We're over halfway through the year, which I cannot believe. Mm-hmm. And we have made some great strides, I do believe, in our podcasting. And, I feel like we've grown closer so far as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't even have words really to describe it. It's just... But I love it. I love absolutely everything about it, everything we're doing here, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Me too. I did remember another thing. We did, about a week ago,
We went down to Winona.
That's right, yeah. I blanked on the name for some reason. Yeah, so we went down to Winona, Minnesota here to the oldest, or one of the oldest, and I do believe it's actually the oldest diner, like drive-in fast food place in Minnesota.
Yes, and shout out to John, the owner. I don't know his last name. And just his wonderful staff. They were all so sweet. He ended up chatting with us while we were eating and telling us about local Bigfoot stories from his buddies, and suggested a spooky cemetery for us to go check out, and just like a couple of local spots and everything. He was just super sweet. Everybody there was so wonderful, and it was just a really great time. We stopped along Lake Pepin.
Oh yes, we did.
We sure did, and I spent plenty of time looking for Peppy.
Oh, absolutely, Hannah did. I have a video that I will be posting on our Instagram at some point here. It
was 100% staged and is meant to be as cheesy as it is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I realized we were along Lake Pepin, I got very excited.
She made me stop so quick.
I did. There was a lookout, like a little lookout pull-off area that was like half a mile ahead of us, and I was like, "You better stop."
Yeah,
And we were about halfway through our drive anyway, so
it was a perfect time to stop.
And it was beautiful out. Oh my goodness! And it was just a really beautiful view. So we do have some pictures of the view and everything too. So we did not find Peppy,
which is unfortunate. We were so hopeful.
But maybe one of these days we'll do a little beach day at Lake Pepin and.
Little beach day. Maybe I want to kayak out on there. That looks fun to kayak on when it's not as windy as it was. Because I was like, "Ooh, little waves. Kayak." I'm like, "Yeah, I'd probably drown. Yeah, I wouldn't want that."
A little choppy, but
chop.
I just have one last little thing.
Oh, do you now?
I just want to say hello and welcome to anybody who is now listening to us because you found me in the Haunted Minnesota group on Facebook.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I had just posted in there saying that I was looking for some haunted locations in Minnesota for the podcast. And a lot of people showed interest, so I double-checked with the admin, and they gave me their approval, Rebel, to post the links and everything. So I just want to say thank you again to everybody for those suggestions. And if you are listening, welcome, and thanks for checking us out.
Yes, welcome. Welcome to the Bleeding Grave family. Come grab a shovel, help us dig. We're going body snatching.
No, we're not.
That is a big fat lie. Anywho.
I feel like we should have a t-shirt. Like, you have the one that says we're going body snatching, and then me, no, we're not.
And you can only buy them in pairs.
Yes.
But each one you can choose its own size.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Oh,
we're inclusive.
You know how many boyfriend and girlfriend, or just couples in general, will buy those?
Absolutely.
I think we're onto something here. I'm gonna to the drawing board tonight.
All right. So with that, should we flip our coin?
We should flip the coin.
I have no idea where the coin is.
The coin is right behind the computer.
Rearranged.
I kept everything there, but I just cleaned up the cords and literally 90-degree turned the table.
It is your turn to flip the coin.
It is my turn to flip the coin.
He's studying the coin really closely right now.
Bombay Hook. Okay. Delaware. Okay.
We should find a Minnesota one.
I probably have one. I have a whole coin jar. Oh. I could probably find one real quick.
Just for future episodes, get a Minnesota quarter.
Yep. And here we go.
It's tails.
Tails. All right, Hannah.
All right, so Austin.
Anna.
You know how when we were talking about Hoska Castle last week, we were in the Czech Republic?
Yes.
Well, we are still in the Czech Republic this time.
Are we really?
Yes.
How far away are we?
This time we are 40 miles from Prague in a smaller town called Kutna Hora.
Why does this name sound so familiar?
Well, we're going to be talking about the Sedlec Ossuary, also known as the Czech Church of Bones.
There it is. Okay. I've heard bits and pieces of this, so I can't wait to see what you got. This is going to be awesome. Okay.
All right. So Sedlec Ossuary is in a Roman Catholic chapel, and it is the lower level of the Cemetery Church of All Saints, and it contains the bones of over 40,000 people.
40,000?
Some estimate up to 70,000, but the general consensus is over 40,000.
Like, I knew it was going to be a lot, but...
It's a lot.
Jesus.
So we're going to bounce back to the 13th century again this time.
Okay.
So
Seems like a good century to be in.
Yeah. So this was before the church was built. And it was a cemetery. Mm-hmm. And it was a highly sought-after burial ground in Central Europe because a local monastery abbot had made a trip to Jerusalem in 1278.
Okay.
And brought back with him a jar of dirt from Golgotha, which is where Jesus was crucified, or believed to have been crucified. And he spread the dirt in the cemetery, making it a holy place.
Okay.
During the 14th and 15th century, the cemetery had to be made bigger for the large numbers of people lost from the Black Plague and the Hussite Wars. I think that's how you say it. Hussite?
I thought I had a stroke for a second.
Nope. But they were a series of civil wars in the kind of central Bohemia region.
Hussite?
Hussite.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was Hussy? Who see you? I see you.
And then around 1400, the church was built with an ossuary for the lower level to make room for the bodies from the graves that were disrupted during construction. I have the definition of an ossuary here for you.
Okay.
It quite literally is a container or room in which the bones of dead people are placed. It's just a place for bones.
Literally have a literal definition.
Yep.
That's okay.
Yep. Eventually, the ossuary was also used for the remains of bodies that were being removed from the cemetery to make room for new burials. So, like, they dig up old graves once they were just down to the bones, and they would put the bones in the ossuary, because that's what the ossuary is for, and then they'd have a whole new grave there, an open grave to...
I guess that puts a new spin on reduce, reuse, recycle.
Well, again, think about how popular this place was. Like, literally everybody was dying to be here. Like,
you didn't.
I did.
Hannah.
This was the place. If you were in Central Europe and you wanted to be in the holiest place, put to rest in the holiest place, this was basically it.
Okay, fair enough.
At least at a certain time it was. So.
No more cemetery jokes.
No guarantees.
Damn it. Okay.
All right.
Bill, I will just say, Bill, if you're listening, you've ruined cemetery jokes for me. I hope you're proud of yourself.
Oh my God, that's right. That's the joke.
That's the joke.
I didn't realize it for a second. It's even better. Yeah. All right. So, in the 16th century, a half-blind monk was tasked with exhuming the bones and stacking them in the chapel.
So he's...
So, like, the bones were just, in the ossuary. They were just there, so they were like, clean it up. So he stacked them into mounds.
I'm picturing he's getting like 2 femur bones, and he's like making sure they fit perfectly, so they stack all just nice and neat. I actually have pictures of one of the mounds for you. I have so many pictures of the inside of this castle to show you that I'll show you when we kind of get to that part. Okay.
So... he created 6 large mounds, or pyramids, of bones, and was said to have gotten his eyesight back after the task was completed. 4 of these mounds are still in the chapel today.
Oh. Mm-hmm. He did a really good job.
Yes. But he's not the one who's responsible for what we're really here to talk about.
Oh?
In the 1870s... So we're
Whoa.
We're moving up to the 1870s, right?
Are you like M. Night Shyamalan-ing me right now?
No. What?
M. Night, a twist.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, well, no, not really. It's not a twist. I'm just giving you the history of the place.
Oh, got more of the history. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I thought you were like misdirecting me. We're going to talk about this guy who built all the mounds.
So the monk did the mounds, got his eyesight back.
Yeah.
That project was done.
Okay.
Now, fast forward to the 1870s.
Yep.
The Schwarzenberg family, which was an aristocratic family of Czech and German nobility, hired a woodcarver named František Rint to put the bone heaps into order. That is a real quote from online.
Put the bone heaps into order.
So they were like, hey...
what does that mean?
They were like, organize the bones, do whatever. Just, take them out, exhume them, bleach them, organize them.
Okay.
So he fucking decorated the place.
Oh my God. I mean, I guess. You're doing this, you might as well have some fun with it.
Right. So, I said...
I got a question. Is that disrespectful? If they're already in this holy place, is it disrespectful to decorate?
So we're gonna talk about that toward the end.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
Because I wanted to delve into a little bit of that and the energy and all of that stuff.
Awesome.
So... like I said, his work is what most people are familiar with when talking about Sedlec Ossuary. Mm-hmm. So, today you can visit the ossuary and see the skeletal decorations. So, swipe right from here at your leisure. So, it features a chandelier made of...
and this is real?
This is all real. These are all real bones.
God, okay.
A chandelier made of at least one of every human bone.
I see it. What the fuck?
A coat of arms of the Schwarzenberg family made of bones.
What the fuck?
Garlands of skulls and bones, just kind of draped around.
This is really, really cool, but so fucked up.
Right?
Like,
a Christian cross made of bones at the entrance, like when you go down the stairs to get there.
that screams some satanic shit to me right there.
I don't think it looks satanic. I think it looks rad.
Like, no, it's cool, but it's like, I feel like a cult might use that kind of.
No. Mass is actually held here regularly.
Really?
Yeah, they do. They have like mass downstairs sometimes, but there's like, this is a local church. So there's 4 candelabras made of bones and candle holders, 2 large bone chalices, and Rince's signature is on a wall made of bones.
Made of bones.
He signed it with bones in the wall.
He just went for it, didn't he?
And they were like, okay. Like, it just happened.
And no one questioned any of this.
There's not much information known about him other than this information outside of this stuff.
That's all it's like known on this man.
That's about, as far as what's recorded in history, that's about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just this one random ass man in
So
history.
a wood carver, a Czech wood carver.
Like,
they were like, organize the bones, and he was like, but that seems boring.
He's like, challenge accepted.
Right. So I couldn't find much on hauntings here, aside from a couple of small things.
I wonder if because it's a holy place, they're able to cross over, maybe?
I have
easier?
Yeah,
or
we'll get into it.
Okay.
What I did find is curses if you steal bones, touch bones, or are just generally disrespectful.
So how the hell did this guy decorate the place without getting cursed? Because he had the permission?
I like to think he actually did it respectfully.
Okay.
At this point, it's like you're going there to visit them, and like touching them is rude. Like, that's just kind of the gist of it. So, you'd be cursed.
Well, I don't want to be cursed, so.
And then the skull on the altar specifically is said to carry a curse that will bring bad luck or death if it's touched.
Because why wouldn't it?
Rumors of apparitions of the dead in the cemetery at night.
Okay.
So, pretty standard.
Standard, yep.
If you happen to get the chance to be in the chapel alone and you're quiet, you might hear whispers. But, like, they get upwards of 200,000 people going through there a year to visit the ossuary, so.
Oh, so to basically be there alone is going to be...
It's like you have to get there right away in the morning. One travel
Or be
blog
someone
said.
like who works there maybe or something.
And then some people feel uneasy or like they're being watched.
I could see that.
And then a little side note here. So I knew that the Church of Bones existed. I couldn't remember what it was called. So I Googled Church Made of Bones. Do you want to know what came up?
Church Made of Bones. Well, what came up?
An article that said the 8 creepiest churches made of bones. And I was like, hold up. There's 8? Wait a minute. Is there more? That suggests that there's more.
Oh, yeah. 8 best in the world or 8
It was the 8 creepiest.
8 creepiest. So, yeah, that would suggest there are more than 8, Hannah.
Yeah.
What the... Please tell me you looked this up.
So I did go through some of them, and I was going to talk about more of them here. I'm only going to talk about one really briefly, because honestly, these could all be their own stories.
Okay, cool.
So we're going to talk about the Skull Chapel in Poland, which has 24,000 skeletons, and literally like floor to ceiling with bones. The ceiling is covered in bones. The reason we're going to talk about this is because this one was actually done by a Czech priest about 100 years before Sedlec was done. So I want to know what's going on with the Czech people and the decorating with the skeletons, the real life skeletons. Like, what are our people doing?
What have our ancestors done? And is this why we have a weird fixation with bones?
Probably.
Okay.
So there's that. So like I said, I wanted to talk about the energy and everything a little bit, and kind of that a lot of people say it's very peaceful there.
Really?
And, you know, witnessing it in person is something just completely, like, out of this world. People describe it as being both macabre and romantic. You know, a lot of people say that it's a good reminder about kind of life and being here on this planet, and a reminder to enjoy it. It's a good reminder to remember the dead and to respect them. there's a lot of theories about how the dead themselves might feel about what was done with their bones. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I came across that really does make sense to me, as someone who has talked to dead people, is that they wanted to be buried there. They wanted to be laid to rest on that land and everything, and they were.
Okay.
And they never left that place, actually. They're still where they wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And I almost like to think that they like that so many people come to visit them. That seems like exactly the type of thing, like, a ghost or a spirit would be all about, is like, oh, they come to see me? Like...
And, I mean, you're probably being there for all of eternity. Mm-hmm. So, to be somewhere where it's always active instead of, like, in just a home or something, or an abandoned building.
Exactly. And again, it's in a holy place, and a lot of people's beliefs aligned with this holy place. Mm-hmm. So I like to think that maybe it did help them pass over.
Yeah.
And all of that. One thing that I did come across is that some people say that it smells sweet in there sometimes.
Sweet.
Like, some people have
like a bakery sweet?
Yeah, some people say like almost like cookies. Ooh. But then I think about it, I was like, okay, is it cookies or is it that like sickly sweet?
No, Hannah.
But like I said, the bones have been bleached.
Oh. But yeah, so...
But again, this whole underground, for literally hundreds of years, just held skeletons.
Mm-hmm. So sweet.
So I don't know. I didn't find a bunch more on that. There was really only like one or two places I saw that or heard that.
Okay.
I listened to... There's actually a couple of podcast episodes out there.
Oh, really?
On this. But... yeah, I mean, it's a pretty short story. Like I said, there are other, like, bone churches and stuff. And I mean, I could cover, like, the catacombs in Paris. I will say, Sedlec, though, I read somewhere, is, like, the second largest, like, I guess you could say display of its type, just behind the Paris catacombs.
Really?
Yeah. And
I know the Paris catacombs are huge.
Yeah, and this chapel is actually kind of small, but it's like a big, like, Gothic, like, I didn't know I just said it's small, but it's like a Gothic church and everything, but, you know, considering it's in the middle of a cemetery, it's smaller.
And, like, very...
It's very tall.
Tall? Yeah.
Yes, and it's made of
stone. So it's got like a small footprint, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the ossuary is just the lower level.
Like underground or like lower level, like ground level then?
Like underground, it like goes down some stairs, I believe.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's Sedlec Ossuary. Yeah, I think that's all. I mean, I'm just not used to having such a short story. It's not even a full 3 pages of notes.
Right.
So.
I mean, that was like when we first started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kept it short and sweet and...
yeah, which I knew this wasn't going to be a super long story going into it, but I was like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like.
It is. I like it a lot. And I do hope you cover some of the other bone chapels, churches.
There's quite a few, and they're crazy. I saw some pictures of some of the other ones, too. It's just so interesting. Like,
are any in the U.S.?
I don't think there are any in the U.S.
It's more of a European thing?
I think ossuaries were more of a European thing.
Okay.
But, I mean, an ossuary doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be decorated with the bones and everything. The ossuary was just the place for it to be. It just so happens that at this point, a lot of ossuaries have been fucking decorated with its inhabitants.
With its inhabitants. I mean, it's so weird, but at the same time, it'd be so cool to see. I
think about, like, you know, working at, like, haunts and stuff like that. And, like, we have, like, the Skull Tunnel at the Dead End Hayride. Mm-hmm. And how, like, weird stuff like that I'm almost, like, desensitized to. So, like, looking at those pictures, it's not surreal to me. It's not, like, weird. I'm just like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to, like, remind myself. I'm like, these are real. These are real human bones. Like, these are hundreds of years old. These people once walked this earth and used that skull. Mm-hmm. Used that skull. They did.
They did. That skull was used from birth till death in the life beyond.
Right. And they chose to be, they didn't chose to necessarily be decorations, to be turned into a literal skull and crossbones, but that's the thing, too, is that a lot of these places seem to have, like, the skull and crossbone imagery with the real-life bones. So just interesting food for thought. Some people believe that there is darkness that's held onto the bones from the bad things that went on, like the plague, the wars, and everything. And so that's part of the reason that there's curses. But on the flip side of that, there are some people who believe that the bones actually hold healing energies and properties because in life these people their bodies were trying to fight off these illnesses and different things like that. So I thought that was really interesting, a really interesting take on it. It's not something that you would normally hear.
Maybe it's both, where you have good and bad, like a balance.
Which, yeah, that's a theme that I come back to in my life a lot is balance. And especially some sort of balance between like the light and the dark, the good and the evil. When it comes to, especially when you start getting into spiritual stuff, there's a lot about balance.
I believe that wholeheartedly. Yeah. Can't have good without the evil, and vice versa.
Pretty much. Well, like there's karma and dharma, the opposites of each other.
Yep.
The balance.
I thought when somebody first said karma and dharma, I'm like, you fucking made that up. And then they explained, I was like, oh, I just thought it was just, because it rhymes. It's like
what an ignorant thought, Austin.
I know. I've learned. I've grown. Trust me, this was like back high school, like 13 years ago now.
That tracks. That makes sense.
I was ignorant.
He's ignorant.
Just ignorant.
All right. With that, I will let Austin go off on a story because I know he's got a good one for us.
I sure do. All right. So, if anyone remembers last episode, I was saying that I am going to be covering a serial killer, and it is my favorite serial killer. So how many of you out there and Hannah guessed that it was John Wayne Gacy?
I did not. I honestly had no idea who it was going to be.
So, and that's who I'm going to be talking about today is John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown.
Yes.
All right. So, for those of you who do not know who John Wayne Gacy is, he was born March 17th, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to John Wayne Gacy Sr. and Marion Gacy. Gacy was named after John Wayne, the Hollywood icon, and who was a paragon of American masculinity. I will say, drunken father comes into play a lot on this.
Well,
and you'll see
that's
you'll see a theme with like masculinity. So John Sr. was a mechanic, and Marion was a homemaker, and John Wayne Gacy was the second oldest of three, and he had two. The other two siblings were sisters, and they were all raised and grew up on the Catholic beliefs. As Gacy was a child, he was considered a slow learner. He was very uncoordinated, just a clumsy child. Like he had like 2 left feet, some would say. He was overweight and very unathletic due to a heart condition he had. This heart condition got worse as he started to experience blackouts starting at the age of 10. Oh. And in 1957, he was hospitalized with a burst appendix.
That's terrifying for a child.
Right? I mean, he's going through a lot already as a child with just medical issues. And between the ages of 14 and 18, it was estimated Gacy was in the hospital for almost a year.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This would lead to a decline in his grades, and his medical conditions were never conclusively diagnosed, so they never exactly knew what was wrong with him. Gacy had trouble making friends due to his conditions as well, as he couldn't keep up with the other children. And even with his medical condition, Gacy was abused as a child. He had a very close relationship with his mothers and 2 sisters, and a difficult relationship with his father. Gacy Sr. was a drunk, like I said earlier, no shocker there, and he was very often verbally and physically abusive.
Pretty standard when it comes to backgrounds or childhoods of serial killers.
Absolutely. John Wayne Gacy Sr. would usually go after John Wayne Jr., Gacy Jr., I should say. He would belittle him, calling him dumb, stupid, and comparing him to his sisters and calling him the unfavorable one.
Oh.
And making sure he knew that.
That's awful.
According to an interview with Gacy, his earliest childhood memory of his father was when he was 4 years old and his dad beat him with a leather belt.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. His mother tried to shield Gacy from his abusive father, but this would lead to his father making accusations of Gacy, saying he was a sissy and a mama's boy, and he's probably going to grow up to be queer.
Is that really the worst fucking thing that could happen?
Apparently, to this man, it was. If you're angry right now, I totally get it.
Like,
I do.
It's a very conflicting feeling knowing what he did. Mm-hmm. But like, fuck, man, he had it rough.
He did, and this is why I do feel that serial killers have a definite mental illness, and it is not who they are.
Yeah.
And I do feel like they can't help it a lot of the times.
Yes, it's a mental illness. It's a product of their environment a lot of the times that they were raised in. And
environment, and I mean genetics do play a role, and I mean their brain doesn't, when you're abused like that as a child, your brain doesn't develop properly.
No.
And I can see why you would have certain tendencies that could be on the extreme side.
Oh, exactly. Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, that's not to say that we're defending anything.
No. Like
he has done or anything like that, but we can sympathize with
mm-hmm.
childhood John Wayne Gacy.
100%.
We can sympathize with that.
Mm-hmm. And
or I should say empathize.
We can empathize with it, but I will never say that what he did was right. Absolutely. I will never say any serial killer what they did was right. This is more, it's just fascinating how their brain works. And that's what we're always trying to understand, is how a mind of a psychopath, how their mind is, how it was developed and how it works.
Absolutely.
So maybe we could one day treat this. But we are going back to the story. His dad even accused Gacy of faking his sickness while Gacy was laying in the hospital bed. When Gacy was 5 years old, he and his mother were visiting a family friend, and their 15-year-old daughter brought Gacy upstairs to her room and started fondling him.
No.
Both mothers went upstairs to check in on the kids because they just assumed they were playing. They saw what was happening, and the girl's mother grabbed her, slapped her right across the face. Gacy's mother took her away, never saw her again. Oh my God. There was nothing that I could find more on the girl. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately for Gacy, a few years later, when he was 8 years old, he told his dad he didn't want to be left alone with his dad's friends anymore.
Oh, no.
Come to find out, Gacy Sr.'s friends would take Gacy Jr. for ice cream and show him wrestling moves. And while showing him these wrestling moves, he would touch Gacy very inappropriately. Gacy never went on to tell his father what had happened. All he said was, "I didn't want to be left alone anymore with them."
Oh my God.
In 1949, Gacy's father whipped Gacy with a razor strop. If anyone knows what a razor strop is, it's how they sharpen the old straight edge razor blades when guys are getting their beard shaved. Oh, and that's a thick piece of leather.
Yeah.
And this was after finding out that Gacy and a few of his friends were caught sexually fondling a young girl. And that is a story Gacy
is his father or him?
Gacy Jr.
Okay.
Gacy Jr. and his friends.
Okay.
As Gacy grew up into his teen years, he also started to realize he was sexually attracted to men.
Well, the worst possible thing happened.
It did, didn't it? So, from his unfortunate childhood, in his unfortunate teen years, we go into his adult years now. He did not graduate from high school due to his illnesses. And he also had a falling out with his father. And this was all over a car. Gacy's father paid for the car, and Gacy would pay him back. But his father would do things like take the keys and remove the distributor cap. Gacy finally had enough and went and got a key copied, and finally left his father's home with $16 to his name and a cousin he could stay with in Vegas. While in Vegas, he applied for a hospital ambulance service. He lied and said he had experience. But when they found out, they didn't fire Gacy. Instead, they transferred him to the hospital morgue. He worked as an attendant for 3 months, basically moving bodies where they needed to go. And in another interview, Gacy admitted he wasn't able to live with his cousin and slept behind the embalming room on a cot.
Oh my God.
Right? And in the same interview, Gacy admitted to getting into a coffin once, which had a teenage male body in it, and he embraced the body and caressed it as well. All before experiencing, as Gacy calls it, a sense of shock.
No.
The experience made him drive all the way back home to Chicago, Illinois. And once he made it back home, got settled in, he decided he wanted to go to college. But that was kind of difficult with him not having a high school diploma. But he was able to get his way into the Northwestern Business College in Chicago. And once Gacy graduated, he worked as a shoe salesman, and he was able to climb up the corporate ladder and go on to manage the store. And in 1964, Gacy met his his future wife, Marilyn Myers, and she was a shoe saleswoman at the time at the same store. They fell in love and they got engaged in March of 1965. During the time Gacy and Marilyn were together, Gacy joined the local JCs. I didn't know what a local JC was, and It is a leadership training and civic duties to their community, as well as management and business development. So it's kind of like giving back to their community by
being a pillar of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Right. I mean, just for those of you who know who John Wayne Gacy is, it's just like, really? And this is what's just so fascinating to me, is just like, it just seems like a stand-up guy here. Yeah. And it's just like, whoa, but at the same time, it's like all this shit happened, and it's like, there's
just so much.
It's so much. I just wanted to know what's going on, what was always going on inside that guy's head. And also during that same year, Gacy would have his first homosexual experience. According to Gacy, one night after the bar, Gacy went to a colleague's home, and while Gacy was drunk and on the couch, that colleague performed oral sex on Gacy. And after that, he hadn't had one for quite some time.
He's married, isn't he?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Nope.
So he's just dating.
He was dating he's dating Marilyn.
Yeah.
And
then he just did this.
And then he had oral sex, and he let this happen. He wanted it to happen.
Well, yeah.
But not long after, Gacy did actually get married to Marilyn, and they relocated to Waterloo, Iowa. This is where Marilyn's father owned 3 KFC restaurants and asked Gacy if he would like to manage them. Gacy gladly accepted, and during the time that Gacy and Marilyn were down there and managing and living a good life, they decided to have 2 children. And while managing the 3 KFC stores, Gacy would have to conduct meetings. And at these meetings, he would provide chicken to the staff. Seems pretty nice.
Yeah. Where's the butt?
And he insisted on being called Colonel.
Weird. Not a fan of that.
Yeah, it was really, one of the documentaries, one of the old employees was like, yeah, he'd set the chicken down, and when he was talking with us, he's like, you will call me Colonel. Like, Like in a joking way.
Oh, but
at the same time, he's like, no, you will call me Colonel. It's weird, isn't it?
Wait, so is he joking or is he not? Or does nobody know?
That's the question.
So nobody knows whether he's being serious or not. Like,
nope.
Oh my God, what? Okay. Right. Sure, that makes sense.
Hey, we're talking about a serial killer here.
I know.
Talking about a sociopath. Nothing makes sense. I wanted to mention an interesting fact about the JC chapter that Gacy is a part of. Most of the members, including Gacy, were heavily into drug abuse, porn, hookers, and wife swapping.
Okay, maybe. Why are we talking about that now? Is that leading into something?
It's just it's leading into something here.
Okay, wait, didn't he join that before he moved?
Oh, yeah. He was a part of the JCs in Chicago, Illinois, and there's also a JC in Waterloo where he lives now.
Oh, okay, so he just like transferred.
Yep, basically.
Got it. Okay.
And Gacy was a highly regarded member. In 1967, he was named Outstanding VP of the Waterloo JCs.
Okay. Don't want to know what he did to get that title.
I'm going to guess he was the best drug user, porn watcher, hooker doing, wife swapping, I don't know, something like...
Number one drug doer.
He do drug good. Ooh, okay.
Okay. All right. We're going to stop there.
With life now seeming looking up for Gacy, he even got a better surprise with the approval and recognition from his dad finally. For once in Gacy's life, his dad was proud of him, and even went on to say to Gacy how shitty he was as a father. But this high wouldn't last for very much longer. Come August of 1967, this is the first known sexual assault Gacy has committed.
Wait, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Where does he become a clown? Or have we not gotten there?
So interesting enough, everyone knows Gacy is the clown, but this didn't happen till way later in his life.
Oh.
So we will be getting to that.
Okay.
It's going to be a minute, though.
Okay, all right.
So while at a JC gathering, Gacy meets 15-year-old Donald Voorhees Jr., son of Donald Voorhees, a JC member and local politician. Gacy was able to lure Donald Jr. back into his house, and Gacy promised him that they would watch a stag film, just like the ones that they watch at the JC events. And he provided Donald with more than enough alcohol. Once intoxicated enough, Gacy tried to persuade Donald into mutual oral sex, adding, "You have to have sex with a man before you can have sex with a woman."
Okay.
Then proceeded to sexually assault Donald.
No.
Donald was so afraid to tell anyone what happened because Gacy was blackmailing him. But finally got up the courage to tell his father in the following March of 1968. And over the months between August and March, Gacy had similarly abused several other boys.
No.
And a few teenagers as well. And some of the teenagers he tricked into sex for homosexual research and paid them $50 each when the research was done.
What? No.
But, like I said, on March of 1968, Gacy was arrested for the sexual assault of Donald Voorhees Jr. The other boys and teenagers came forward about their abuse from Gacy as well, but Gacy ultimately denies these claims. Because why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't he?
On September 1968, Gacy was ordered by the judge to undergo a psych eval test. The two doctors that were performing the psych test on Gacy concluded that Gacy had APD, antisocial personality disorder, basically a fancy name for a sociopath.
Yeah.
And would be unlikely to benefit from treatment, as it would just be likely Gacy would have repeat conflict with society. But doctors also concluded that Gacy was mentally competent to stand trial. And on November 7th, 1968, he pleaded guilty to one count of sodomy with Donald Voorhees Jr. and still denies any of the other assaults. Gacy also claims that Donald Jr. offered himself to Gacy and not the other way around. Luckily, no one believed that story and sentenced him to 10 years in Anamosa State Penitentiary. Marilyn, his wife, rightfully divorced him.
Yes.
And
get out of there, girl.
Yes. And won sole custody over the kids.
Good.
Gacy never saw her or his kids ever again.
Good.
So are you ready to talk about his time in prison?
I guess. You seem very ready to.
So you're going to be like, what the fuck? All right. So during his time at the penitentiary, Gacy made a reputation for himself as he was a model prisoner. Within a few months of his arrival, he was able to become the head cook, and also during his time in the penitentiary, he joined the JC chapter that was there.
How what is this JC thing everywhere and we've never heard of it?
I know, right?
Does it still exist?
Oh, absolutely it does.
Oh my god. And it's just a cult, I'm sure.
From what I've read, it kind of seems that way.
Like, at this
point.
For
business people.
It's the business cult.
Capitalism.
That's the real business cult. We're all fucking stuck in it.
Yay! Is there a way out?
I mean, you know, cults normally make you hand over all your money.
Oh my god.
So
I didn't need that today, Hannah.
Anyway.
That's the show, everybody. See you. Good night. I'm not mentally here anymore. So, with the JC chapter, he was also able to get the numbers up from 50 members to 650 members.
Excuse me?
You're going to be wild. It took him less than 18 months to do that. So, remember how I said he was a model prisoner?
Yeah.
He was able to negotiate with the prison guards and the warden to increase daily pay for the inmates and was able to get all approvals for better prison conditions for the inmates as well. And this is really strange, but he somehow got approval for a mini golf course within the prison.
Can he, like, pick a side? I'm so are you good or are you bad? Pick one.
Right?
I mean, you're bad. Overall, you're bad.
Mm-hmm.
But
And during his time in prison, Gacy was awarded the Distinguished Service Award for his efforts with the JC chapter of the prison.
Talk about finding balance.
Right. So, fast forward to June of 1969, Gacy tried to appeal for parole, but was ultimately denied. And then Gacy scheduled a second appeal for May of 1970. And during this time, before his hearing, he was preparing, and he completed 16 different high school courses through the prison and obtained his diploma in November of 1969. During his time in prison on Christmas Day, Gacy got a phone call, and he was on the phone for a few minutes before Gacy dropped to the floor sobbing. The call was to inform Gacy that his father had passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. Gacy pulled himself together enough to go and make a request for a supervised compassionate leave so he could go to his father's funeral, but his request was denied. So Gacy couldn't wait to get his second parole hearing. And as luck would have for Gacy, and being a model inmate and making life better for inmates, as well as bettering himself with education, he was granted parole on June 18th, 1970. Gacy would be put on a 12-month probation with conditions. He checked in every night with his probation officer, and he would relocate to his mother's house in Chicago. Gacy only spent 18 months of his 10-year prison sentence.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's just a roller coaster of emotions, isn't it?
It really is.
Do you see why I love this so much?
Wow. I'm gonna need a nap after this.
Feel free, girl. Feel free. When Gacy was released from prison, he was taken to the bus station so he could get on a bus to go back to Chicago. And on the morning of June 19th, he would arrive back in Chicago, moved back in with his mom, and took a job as a short order cook. So with living back with his mom, all seemed to be going well for Gacy. Until February 12th, 1971. For some reason, Gacy drove to the bus station and found a teenage boy and tried to befriend him. Gacy was able to lure the boy into his car and drive him back to his home, his mother's home.
No.
Where Gacy attempted to force himself onto the boy. The boy was able to escape, call the cops, and Gacy was arrested. And on June 22nd was the court date set for Gacy, and it was brought to light in the court that Gacy had flashed a sheriff's badge to the boy.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Where did he get that?
I'm going to think it's like a costume piece or something.
Probably.
I mean, it's a bus station. It might be a little dark. I mean, this is the 60s.
Yeah.
We got to remember. The complaint the boy had filed against Gacy was thrown out and all charges were dropped when the boy failed to appear in court to testify against Gacy. And it was found that the boy tried also blackmailing Gacy.
The boy tried blackmailing Gacy?
The boy then tried blackmailing Gacy.
Okay.
Like it was such an odd story that I'm like, I just need to share it. Like I just need to say it.
Just none of it makes sense.
Exactly. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So with this unfortunate incident, the Iowa Board of Parole, that's where Gacy was in the penitentiary, was in Iowa. Mm-hmm. They never knew about this incident, and on October 18th, 1971, Gacy's parole of 12 months was finally over, and a month later, records of Gacy's criminal convictions in Iowa were sealed. Basically, his criminal activities were no longer made public. Like, he never did any of it. Hannah's face right now is, like, exactly the face you would make about this.
What? Why would they seal his records?
There's a part of the law in Iowa after so long you can seal them up. And given that he had good behavior in his parole, he was a good... So it just
looked like he had a clean record. He never spent time in jail. He was never on parole. He was never on probation. What in the frick? What?
Somebody done fucked up.
That's the worst law. I shouldn't say worst, because I suppose there's cases where that like would be good, but like it shouldn't just apply to anybody.
I mean, other courts could access them, but what reason would they have to access them unless
public record?
But it's not public, so you couldn't look if they had computers at the time.
It wouldn't show up on a background check.
Nope.
Like,
nope, it wouldn't. So he's like a free man, like he's never done a bad thing in his life.
Thanks, I hate it.
You're welcome. Glad I could help. Once Gacy's parole ended, he was able to go buy a home with the help of his mother. She moved in as well. He and his mother bought a ranch-style home in Norwood Park Township, a suburb of Chicago. Gacy would regularly throw parties at his home, which could include up to 400 people, from neighbors to businessmen and politicians, because of the whole JC groups and everything.
What does JC stand for?
That's a good question. I think I still have it up here.
Because I'm assuming it's like the letters JC.
No, it's JAYCEE.
Oh, but is it still an acronym?
Yeah, the United States Junior Chamber, also known as JC's, JC, or JCUS or JCI USA. So Junior Council.
Okay.
That makes sense, yeah. And in late 1971, Gacy was engaged to a girl named Carol Hoff. She and Gacy dated for a bit in high school.
Girl, run! Run as fast as you can!
Yeah, so they dated. God damn it. She's not wrong, everybody. just hold on. So yeah, they dated for a bit in high school, but now they can rekindle the flame that was lost many moons ago. And in July of 1972, they were married, and Gacy's mom moved out shortly before the wedding so they could have the house to themselves.
She moved out of her home?
She helped buy the house.
Oh, wait, that's right. No, that's right. That was, okay, it was his house now. That's right,
Yeah.
They moved. I forgot.
Yep, she was the co-signer.
Right, got it.
Once married, Gacy had Carol move in, and Carol had 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and they also moved in with them. A few years later, he finally came out to Carol and to tell her that he was bisexual. This didn't really shock Carol, and she was very accepting.
She's like, oh, honey, I know. It's...
But in 1975, that would change, as on Mother's Day 1975, right after Gacy and Carol had sex, he turns to her and says, "This will be the last time we have sex." This blindsided Carol. It came out of nowhere.
I mean, yeah.
And shortly after this, Carol started noticing Gacy would spend most of his evenings away from home, and sometimes returning in the morning. And the excuses he would make were very generic, like, I was working late, or I was conducting business meetings. And
right.
So in his business meetings, I want to point out, because in the early 70s, Gacy started his own construction company called PMD Contractors, which stood for Painting, Decorating, and Maintenance. And when he was just starting out, he was still working as a short order cook during the day, and he would take on minor repair work during the evenings. And finally, in 1973, Gacy would be able to quit his cook job and work solely for his construction company.
Okay.
And in 1975, Gacy's business started to grow rapidly and was working 16 hours a day. So this is where it kind of comes into the I was working late and I was conducting business meetings and all that. So I just want to give a little background on that.
Okay.
Between his company of PMD and PE Systems, he was always working 4 jobs simultaneously and would frequently travel to other states. And in 1978, the annual revenue of his construction company was $200,000 a year. In 1978.
Jesus.
He was doing good for himself.
That's a quick question.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did he get the energy to work 4 jobs? Because
4 projects, 4 jobs within his construction company.
I thought you meant. No. I thought you meant he, like,
No.
Homeboy was maintaining 4 separate jobs.
Like your dad has different jobs for his. Yeah. So same thing.
Got it.
Same.
Got it.
So back to Carol and Gacy. Carol noticed Gacy would bring, for some reason, teenage boys into the garage early hours of the morning.
Girlie, that should have been your first sign.
Right. So with this, Carol started snooping, and what she found was confusing and horrified her. She found gay porno magazines hidden. She also found other men's wallets and driver's license and ID cards, because some of them weren't above the age of 18. In October of 1975, after a very heated argument, Carol asked Gacy for a divorce. He agrees to a mutual divorce, and on March 2nd, 1976, the divorce was finalized. And Gacy never saw her or her daughters ever again.
Yeah, just...
I mean, good for both of them,
seems
though.
like that was, like, the cleanest divorce I've ever heard of.
I mean, that's how they...
All things considered.
All things considered. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, good for both of his wives.
Yeah, I'm so glad they both got out.
Yeah. So, let's talk about his construction company for a bit, because there's some creepy-ass shit that goes on here.
Oh, of course.
So, Gacy's business was very successful, and in May 1973, just going to backtrack a little bit, Gacy and one of his employees traveled to Florida to view a property Gacy had purchased. During their stay, Gacy had reportedly raped that employee in the hotel, and after a few days, when they returned to Chicago, the employee drove to Gacy's house, got him outside, started yelling at him, and beat Gacy on his front lawn. Oh. Gacy's then wife, Carol, watched this and asked what happened. Gacy proceeds to tell her the employee attacked him for Gacy refusing to pay him for the employee's shoddy and bad paint job he did on some of the property, or on some of his construction jobs. All right, now we're back up more to the present here, or as present in the 70s. On May 1975, Gacy hired a 15-year-old Anthony Antonucci. And a few months later, Gacy went to Anthony's home because he had an injured foot while working on the job. And Gacy wanted to come visit him and keep him company. And with a bottle of wine. 15-year-old, you're going to bring him a bottle of wine for a broken foot?
Just stop it. Just knock it off. Stop it. Leave him alone.
The two drank the wine and watched a stag film. Blindsided Anthony was as he was wrestled to the ground by Gacy. Gacy then cuffed his hands behind his back and left the room. When he came back, he was attacked by Anthony, and Anthony wrestled him to the ground because little did Gacy know, Anthony was a high school wrestler and he was the best in his class. And Gacy didn't tighten one of the cuffs good enough, so Anthony was able to slip his hand out, uncuff himself, and get the jump on Gacy. After Gacy was on the ground, Anthony put him in the very same handcuffs. Gacy threatened him while he was on the ground, but after a few minutes, he calmed down and promised to leave if he was free. Anthony agreed, uncuffed Gacy, and then Gacy left Anthony's home. Anthony did work for Gacy for 9 months after the attack, and Gacy never attempted to attack or /assault him again. I don't know why you'd want to go work back for that crazy lunatic. I don't understand that in the slightest.
I don't understand anything that's going on.
It's a messed up adulthood, I tell you.
Just
a messed up individual.
I was not prepared.
I'm sorry.
Like
I'm not at the same time.
My brain has been applesauce for the last 3 days already. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not prepared.
All right. On June 26, 1967, Gacy was driving and picked up a hitchhiker, 18-year-old David Cram. While driving Gacy to David's destination, Gacy offered him a job at his construction company. David gladly accepted and started working that very evening. About a month later, David moved into Gacy's home since he had nowhere else to go. And the day after he moved was David's 19th birthday. So Gacy decided to celebrate his 19th birthday, and they had plenty to drink. And Gacy somehow conned David into wearing handcuffs, like in front of him instead of behind him, which was a really weird thing to point out for Gacy to point out to him. Like, yep, we're going to have him in front of you. I don't know how he conned somebody into wearing handcuffs, but Gacy then grabbed in between the cuffs, the chain, and swung David around, intending on getting David to the ground to assault him. David was able to kick Gacy in the face, free himself from the cuffs, and they never spoke of that day again. And for some reason, David still lives with him, but I'm going to guess that's because he has nowhere else to go, and he's probably got his guard up, hopefully. Yeah. A month later, while David was in his room, Gacy appeared in David's bedroom doorway, just standing there staring at him. Then finally said, "Dave, you really don't know who I am. Maybe it would be good for you if you give me what I want."
Icky, no.
David resisted, knocking Gacy back onto the ground and said, "You ain't no fun." This is no fun. We're almost to the part, you'll understand why you ain't no fun as well. David finally moved out on October 5th, 1967, and immediately stopped working for his construction company. Creepy to know that on David's birthday, and plenty times after David's birthday, Gacy was dressed up as Pogo the Clown. And that, my dear friends, is where we're going to pick up on episode 21.
Wait, so he dressed up as the clown
for
Homeboy's birthday?
He dressed up as a clown for his birthday.
Is that how it started?
No.
Okay.
So, I will preface on the next episode, we're going to have to go back just a little bit because this did start before David's 19th birthday. And this, if anyone knows anything about John Wayne Gacy, this is where things start to get really wild. If it isn't already been wild enough.
Ain't no fun.
So, Hannah, so far, that's basically Gacy's, childhood, teenage years, adulthood, leading up to the murders, Pogo and Patches the Clown. And we are going to go into Pogo and Patches, and we're going to go into the murders.
I didn't realize there was 2 clowns.
There is 2 clowns. One little tidbit for you, Hannah. Pogo was more of a happy clown, where Patches was more of a sad clown. And that's all I'm going to give you, because we're going to definitely go more in depth with it, though.
See, I don't get creeped out by clowns easily, but you.
You know, the messed up part is I hate clowns.
No, I know, which is why I think it's hilarious that you love this
I know, it's
story.
It creeps me out so much, because I look at these pictures. Yeah, I have to look at these pictures while I'm, researching, and it's It's fascinating yet icky to me. The clown makeup is just beyond, like, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. There's just something about it, even before I knew that he was a serial killer.
It's the perfect clown makeup.
No, that's not a good way to put it.
Because the right clown makeup is kind of... like...
Clowns shouldn't have permanent facial features or facial expressions. And be able to talk like that.
It's okay.
Do
you want a cemetery fun fact?
Please give me a cemetery fun fact.
Yeah.
I don't like clowns, Hannah.
All right. So a witch must be buried face down to prevent the community from further supernatural spells. If this doesn't work, unbury them and turn their clothes inside out, then rebury them face down, and that should do the trick.
I am sorry. What? How many times did this happen before they're like, yep, this is the way we do it?
I have no idea, but I love love the specific instructions.
I hate the specific instructions, and Hannah, I need you to look into this. I need answers on the next episode.
I'll do what I can.
Thank you. I need something, because there's got to be a story behind that. Has to be.
I have no idea. I wouldn't even know how to search the folklore behind this.
Challenge.
I'll see what I can do.
Get your journalism pants on. Investigate, explore, uncover the truth.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're gonna go. That was episode 20. I can't believe we've done 20 episodes.
It's 20 episodes. Thank you so far for those who have been on the journey with us, and welcome to our newcomers. Yes, we appreciate you all.
Please follow wherever you listen. Social media, leave us a rating, especially on Spotify. Very helpful on Spotify if you rate us. And just remember, feel free to interact with us on social media wherever. We love it.
We do. We check periodically when we can.
Yeah.
We might not answer right away, but we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We try, but we're human too, and we got our own lives. But with that, I think we shall sign off, and next time we will probably have more comfortable voices.
Yes, because we will be a lot more comfortable on a couch.
On a creaky couch. It's going to add to the ambiance.
Oh, wonderful.
Creaky couch.
All right. Off we go. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. The Bleeding Grave is hosted by Hannah Slavic and Austin Winger.
Music by Hannah Slavic.
You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
You can listen to The Bleeding Grave on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more.